What's going on, fam? Today we're gonna learn how to make custom shirts like this, and this for next to nothing. It's kind of awesome. Stick around. Welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. So quite a while back at this point, we learned how to make our own little silk screens here so we can make custom shirts. And that was awesome and really cool to learn how to do, but it's also a really intensive process and can kind of get a little expensive. It required a frame of some sort, the fabric, the medium that you actually make the silk screen on, a light, a whole bunch of other stuff. In today's project though, I'm gonna show you how to make a shirt like this using only some bleach and freezer paper. And a couple little other odds and ends you probably already have around your house. And after that, I'm gonna show you how to make it a little bit more precise and repeatable in case you wanna dish out a bunch of these for retailer fun. All right, so without much further ado, let's jump into it and level up this skill. Method 1, cheap and easy. Like I said, this first way is super cheap and easy, like me. Oh yeah, that's not a compliment. Fun and simple, no, that's not good either. It doesn't cost you a lot and it's gonna be a good time. All this sounds really bad. All you're really gonna need to pull this thing off is some household bleach, one of these little misting spray bottles. I happen to get this one here from CVS for like $1.50. They're stupid cheap. Some freezer paper, and of course, a t-shirt to print on. Special note about the t-shirt, you wanna make sure it's 100% cotton. If you use anything that has like mixed fibers or whatever, it's not gonna bleach evenly. So you're gonna get some parts that are like a weird gray and other parts that are orange. It won't look good. Unless a weird gray and orange shirt is what you're looking for, and then go for it. Oh, and of course, you're also gonna need a design. For my shirts, I am using Babu here, who's drawn by Senpai Fish for our Discord community. She also drew all of these here for the community and does a lot of leather patterns for us on the site. Check it out, link in the description. Thank you, Senpai Fish. You are incredible as always. Now you, of course, can use whatever design you want, but I'm gonna caution you to use like really simple, kind of large shapes if you can, just because the way this process works, as you're gonna see, really fine detail is gonna be kind of a pain going forward. To get started, position your art on a flat surface and tape it so it doesn't move around on you. Now we're gonna place some of this freezer paper over the top of our artwork, but keep in mind it has two sides, one matte and the other one shiny. You're gonna want that shiny side facing down. Now, using the art underneath as your guide, trace all the lines of your design into place. For purposes you're gonna see later on, I found something like a Sharpie leaves a nice thick line that's gonna help us later on. In fact, I took care to make sure my lines were a little extra thick at this point, just to make sure they're gonna stick well later on and also make some nice bold lines in my art. All right, so it's at this point that some careful planning is gonna have to take place. So, do you see how there are lighter and darker values in this image? To achieve that on our fabric, we're gonna have to remove these different color pieces in a specific order in order to get the values that we want. So basically, whichever portion we remove first is gonna end up being the lightest, and whatever one we move last is gonna end up being the darkest. So to make this whole process easier, I went ahead and numbered each panel in the order from lightest to darkest that I'd need to remove it. So you know, all the pieces marked 1 have to come off first, then the pieces marked 2, 3, you get the point. Okay, so once that's done, I use an X-Acto knife to start cutting out my shapes, leaving only tiny connected bits so everything stays together until I'm ready to move them. Okay, now we want to stick this to our shirt. To help keep everything stiff and in shape for the placement of the design, I just slid this piece of cardboard inside of it and then tucked the shirt all around it so it stayed in place. Not only is that going to help keep everything into shape, but it's going to stop the bleach that we're going to put on this thing from seeping through one side of the shirt and staining the other side. All right, with that prepped and ready, I positioned Babu right where I want him and locked it into place with my iron. Now remember how I pointed out that this had a shiny side to it? Well, that's a thin plastic coating, and by ironing it, we're melting that plastic coating so that it grabs onto the fabric of the shirt. And no worries, this doesn't ruin anything, it pulls off really cleanly. In fact, to protect the rest of the shirt from bleach overspray, I ironed on more down at the bottom. Then I got lazy and just covered the top area with the shop towel I had laying around. Alright, at this point, we're just about all set with the prep steps. The only little bit we have left to do is to make our bleach solution. To do that, I just filled one of these little spritzer bottles halfway with water, then topped it off with bleach, resulting in a 50-50 mix. You definitely want to water this down because bleach can be really harsh on fabrics and can actually eat a hole in your shirt if you're not careful. Alright, so this is where the magic happens. I think you're gonna love it. So I start by carefully removing the areas marked with 1s, representing the lightest of the color gradients I want to achieve. Then I evenly mist it with that bleach mixture dabbing up any excess to keep it from soaking into the paper. And almost immediately you can see the black of the fabric start to turn this rust color as the bleach does its thing. Alright, so with that first area all set, it's time to start removing the next. And a quick note here, if you accidentally lift up something you don't mean to, you can just iron it back down into place and it should stay put. Once those are all free, I spray them down, hitting the areas I've already uncovered as well. So by doing it this way and making sure we re-hit the pieces that have already been done, we're gonna keep that like a shade lighter every single time. So now I just continue this process, exposing new areas and spraying down everything to further lighten up the previous areas. And once that last bit is done, I remove the rest of the paper and I cannot believe how clean that came out. I thought maybe this would be a little bit less precise than that, like the lines would be a little fuzzy or messy or whatever, but this looks really good. All the lines came out super clean and detailed and everything looks great. But don't take too much time to geek out because the bleach keeps doing its thing as you're waiting. To stop it from lightening up all your areas too much, just give it a quick wash in some cold water to stop the process. And bam, check this out! This came out great, right? Like, I'm super impressed with how clean it is and the different gradients of color. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, I kind of forgot about the water dunking process until I was all done, and then I was like, oh no, I gotta go get water. So as a result, I think some areas turned out just a little bit lighter than I wanted to, like there should be a bit more separation here and the color of his arm right here. But all in all, this came out great, and what did it cost me? The t-shirt was like, what, $10 at Michael's? That little bit of bleach I use is like a few cents. The little tiny bit of the freezer paper I use, this is super cheap to do. But let's say for some reason you want to make a whole bunch of these kind of t-shirts, or you want to make the process a little bit faster. For that, let's move on to method 2, cutout creations. Alright, so this method is going to make it a little bit more precise and easier to like mass produce, but it's going to necessitate a much larger initial investment. Basically everything is the same, except instead of using freezer paper for our design, we're gonna use this sticker paper and a vinyl cutter to lay our image down. Now I'm gonna be using the Cricut Cutter Maker, but you don't have to get like a really intense one. I think you can get a Cricut Air for like $180. Turned out to be a really good investment for me because I'm gonna make my own business cards and stickers, and mine can cut leather, which is awesome. But really any one of them that can cut precise shapes into sticker paper will work for this process. So my cutter comes with this really nice, easy to use program that even has a little template made specifically for t-shirts. This way I can size my image and visualize how it would look sitting on a shirt. For an image, I loaded in this LOL Babu and made sure it was roughly the size I'd like to see on a shirt. On the next screen, I positioned my little Babu so he'd fit on the paper the way it's positioned on my cutting mat. Then the Cricut asked me what kind of thing I was cutting into, and since this has the thickness of like a light cardstock, that's what I chose. Once that was all set, I loaded it into the machine and pressed the little flashy go button. And there is something deeply satisfying about watching this thing work. I find those tiny little robotic precision movements just kind of endlessly entertaining to watch. And once it was all set, it spit out a perfect little cutting of my image. Alright, so back down in the lab here, everything else is exactly the same. I went ahead and numbered everything from the lightest value to the darkest. Then I removed the backing and positioned my little adhesive cut exactly where I wanted it on the shirt. Now I know I said you didn't need the freezer paper for this particular method, but I like the way it sealed the shirt so much that I used it to cover all the open space to protect against overspray. Then just like before, I started removing pieces in order and spraying them down with my bleach solution. I love how you can actually just sit and watch this change color. It's so cool. And then once I was happy with that, I removed the rest of the paper and then stopped the process immediately with cold water. And this time, I think I got the timing pretty good. Look at that, that looks incredible. Can you believe that's only done with bleach? Look how awesome that is. Maybe next time I'll do the little laugh tears at the same time I do the teeth to make them lighter, but look, that came out great. All my lines are super crisp and bold, like that worked well. And because I did it on the vinyl cutter, I can just reproduce as many of these as I want, super easy. And because the vinyl printer did all of the cutting, I didn't need to draw anything, I don't need to cut it out with my razor knife. This is really quick to do. And there you have it, now you know 2 ways to make custom print shirts on the cheap. Just make sure you protect yourself with the bleach, don't go destroying your clothes or, I don't know, burning your eyes out by trying to make a shirt. If you like what you saw here or found it at least mildly entertaining, why don't you give me some of that like it love, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when I release new content. Your likes and support really help out the channel, so I'd appreciate it. Speaking of support helping out the channel, I want to call out my newest high-tier Patreon. Krista and Brendan Armentrout, you guys rock! And good timing too, because now we're having a contest for our high-tier Patreon members. On Patreon, in the Patreon area of the Discord, I'm going to be asking you a question, the answer of which will win you one of these shirts. Not one of these shirts are my size. Give me your size and I'll make you one of these shirts. Just choose whichever Babu emoji you want and maybe some words or something and I'll make it for you. If any of you want to be part of contests like this going forward or just feel like helping the channel out, why don't you consider joining our Patreon down in the description below. All of you really help this channel and make it so I can afford to keep doing all this stuff. And if you're not in a position to give right now, no worries. Just you being here to the end of the video and being part of the community is incredible to me. I really appreciate it. Speaking of this incredible community, I want to highlight some of the projects you guys have been working on. It is so great to see all of your projects, and for some of you, like, you're leveling up skills along with me. And I love that, seeing your change from project to project and kind of how your artistic style flows. It's so cool to watch. I've said it before and I mean it, you are one of the most talented communities that I've ever been a part of. If you want to be part of this incredible community, check out the Discord down below. Finally, if there's anything you'd like to see me cover on the show, why don't you leave it down in the comment section and I'll add it to the list. Alright, I gotta go. There's some shirts for some Patreon members I gotta make. In the meantime, keep leveling up, you. God, all this sounds really bad.